Hi, it's Tom from GreenShortz, and it's been a while since I've made something out of mud, and that changes today. Today's project is going to be a rocket furnace. Well, at least we'll see if we can get it to rocket. A while ago I made a plaster and perlite furnace that I didn't make a video about because it was just something for me to experiment with. And when I had bought the crucible for it, I underestimated how big this one was going to be. This is a number 10 crucible, and it's much too big for the little furnace that I made. So I want to make a big furnace today, and I want to do it out of Cobb. And its purpose is going to be to melt aluminum. Now, I tried to melt aluminum cans with the small furnace that I'd made, and it did okay. I just couldn't get enough capacity in there while it was hot to make it worth the effort. So I want to make a bigger furnace so I can melt more cans at one time. I got my ratty GreenShortz shirt on today because this is going to be a messy job. The cob I'm going to make is using Georgia clay, which is the native soil around here that's below the topsoil, sand, which I'm going to scavenge from the local creek, and just some straw. And in place of that, I'm going to use weeds that I pull out of my yard that have a stronger stem. So what I find is that when I make a video, if I have everything around me that I need to make it, then the process goes a lot more quickly. So I'm going to gather all my materials now, and we'll start by heading down to the creek. When the creek rises, it pushes sand up on this bank, and it's a perfect spot to harvest it. For my binder, I'm going to just pull a bunch of weeds around the yard. I'm choosing these because they have a stronger, more durable stem like straw, but they should do the job just fine. But I'm not going to pull them all out because I kind of think they're pretty. There's more where this came from. This will do for a start, and I've got more if I need it. I stockpiled some clay here about a year ago, and it's sort of weathered down a little bit, but it's still there. So I'll be using this as my source for the clay component of the cob. The site for my furnace is going to be right here beside my outdoor shed, which is still under construction. One reason I'm putting it here is that in addition to smelting aluminum, I want to be able to put a coil in it and use it to heat the shed during the winter. First thing I'll do here is clear the area. Next, I'm going to put in the base. I don't want this furnace sitting right on the ground, primarily because we're over the top of a large oak tree's root network, and I don't want to damage the roots or let the fire get into the roots, which would be a bad thing. I had a couple of bags of concrete that got wet and solidified, so I'm going to use those for the foundation for the stove. It ain't pretty, but it will provide some thermal protection for the ground. I make a hearth for this out of cob minus the straw. In place of that, I'm going to use some crushed up ceramic. This is the canvas shower liner that I used for the cob to make the bread oven. And because it's canvas, it's holding up nicely. Ready to make some more. The ants have found the clay as well, so I'll have to move them out as best as I can. I'm chopping this up so it'll mix well with the sand. I think I just let the ants crawl out. Alright, I think I got most of the ants out. I'm going to mix the cob. Whenever I find a spot that's a little bit too squishy, I'm just sprinkling in a little bit of sand. Pulling up the shower curtain liner into the middle and mixing again to help break down and mix any layers. Some people recommend letting the cob sit wrapped up overnight, 24 hours or so, to let the moisture really spread out evenly. But you can also use it just like it is right now. Just be prepared for some dry spots and some wet spots. If you find anything that's too dry, throw it back in and mix it up. As I put the first layer of cob here on top of the concrete foundation, I'm going to use some salvage bricks to kind of tidy it up a bit. Now I'm going to add the pieces of broken ceramic mug to the floor of the hearth. These things are super sharp. I just have a whole box of these that were broken and I busted them up a little bit more. This may be overkill, but it's better than these mugs going in the landfill. Now I'm going to add another layer of ceramic. And then a final layer of cob. Alright, so the foundation is finished. I'm going to cover this up and let it dry out for a couple days. I'm going to use this 12 by 12 inch flue pipe to contain the cob on this furnace. Outside dimensions, about 13 1/4. Something I learned from my comments is that flue pipes like this are vitrified. It's from a French word which means glass, and so they're not made to handle high temperatures. But I'm going to have an inner diameter here that's actually going to be the chimney, and there'll be lots of good insulated cob between this flue pipe and the heat. The reason I'm doing this is because this is stabilized. Cob, if left exposed to the elements, is going to simply erode away. The hearth is hardened up quite nicely and is now stabilized for the rest of the furnace to be built on top of it. I'm going to continue my bricks up another row, and I'm going to slice down the hearth a little bit so that the bricks sit right on top of one another. I'm going to give you a quick look at the profile that I'm going to build up with from here, because I want to speed through it. I'm going to start with a paver here, and then go with a thin fire brick on the first level. This section of the firebox is going to be where the ash and coals fall down, so not as high heat as it's going to be up here in the burn chamber. On top of those, we're going to have our grate, just a reused grill grate here. And then on top of the grate, we're going to have a full fire brick. And then beside the full fire brick, we're going to have another paver. And then our flue pipe is going to sit on top of here. Of course, I'm going to level all this out, fill in these gaps as I go. So, of course, I want this dimension here to be the 13 inches of the flue pipe. I want the flue pipe to sit outside the full fire bricks. I'm going to adjust my profile just a little bit so that the tops of the bricks line up evenly. Alright, first layer is done. Now I need a second layer of fire brick. A couple of pieces here in the back. And then the final layer of the papers. The finishing touch on the base in the Firebox is a thin fire brick that goes across the top of the front here. It will act as a shield to the bottom edge of the flue pipe. I don't want that getting blasted with heat. Alright, the base is finished. And now I'm going to actually grab the pipe that I'm going to use for the inside diameter of the chimney portion. I've got two different diameters of some scavenged pipe that I'm going to use for the chimney. The first smaller diameter is going to be the bottom portion of the chimney. The last foot or so I'm going to switch to the larger diameter. That's the part of the chimney that's going to hold the crucible. For the chimney portion of the build, I'm going to add the straw binder to the cob. I'm going to mash this out as flat as I can since it started to firm up. It's been about a week since I initially made this. I think it'll be okay. It is a little better to mix this in earlier in the process, but I want to avoid any large clumps like that of the binder. All right, it's ready to go. Whew, I'm out of breath. That was a workout. One last check for level. Good. When I'm adding the cob with the binder in it, I try and use the longer shape like this to allow for the binder to sort of stay intact and to be connecting that longer area for lateral strength. Now the clock is running with the thunder, but it's Georgia in the afternoon in the summer. That's just par for the course. I pulled the pipe out because I got to put the flue pipe on next. Put the pipe back in and build up the chimney. However, while it's like this, I want to go ahead and marry the round form of the Cobb chimney with the square form of the Firebox, just for a smooth transition. I now pronounce you chimney and Firebox. You may kiss the mud. Alright, let's add the flue pipe. And now I'm going to put the pipe back in and start filling this up. You can see how much Cobb will have to insulate and protect the flue pipe. Alright, this section is going to be a little hard to see, but I think you get the gist of what I'm doing. Just backfilling around the pipe and work my way up. And the rain's coming. I'm going to keep working in spite of the rain, but the camera's going to stay in a covered spot. I need to make another batch of Cobb. The storm has passed and I'm back at it. But in the meantime, I got the Cobb made. All done. Saw that flash. It lit it up even though it was pretty bright out. That was close. So the crucible is about 9 inches tall and I want about 1 inch of it, or 1.5 inches, sticking out of the top of the flue here. So it looks like I got about another 1 inch of Cobb to add till I switch sizes of the pipe. we're good to go. Now I'm going to slide this pipe out. There are a few gaps down in the chimney that I'm going to fill. And I'm also going to round over the top. Rounding over this edge is going to help us transition between the two diameters of pipe. I've cut 2 pieces of rebar that I'm going to put in here to support the crucible. And I'm going to add the large pipe and finish out filling the flue pipe with Cobb. The flue pipe is full of Cobb. Let's pull out this pipe and we can light it up. Now a few gaps to fill. Had some dry firewood handy, kindling. My goal with this Firebox was to be able to burn whole 2x4s. It's my second test burn. I made the mistake the first time of putting in 2x4s. I was thinking I might be able to burn those, but because of the dimensionality of the 2x4, basically locks up against the side of the Firebox. They just kind of stack in there, and then there's no way for the air to move around the wood, and it just doesn't work. I may try splitting some up into less uniform pieces, and that might work. But for now I'm sticking with round hardwood. This is oak, and it's actually largely from the tree right above me. As the dead branches drop off the bottom, I'm able to use them for fuel. Although I think when I use this as a forge, I'm gonna have to load the whole chimney full of fuel and probably use a blower on the bottom just to get the temperatures I'm going to need to melt that aluminum to keep that intense heat right on the bottom of the crucible. So we'll see. To light it, I'm going to use one of my rocket booster fire starters that I created to go with the Rocket King, my production rocket stove, which you can find on Amazon. I've got another one sitting in there that I'm going to light with this one, and the two of them together should get this going. Just a mixture of soy wax and sawdust with a candle wick in it. It's really easy to put a fire out when you've got a rocket stove loaded, just because it's kind of a confined space. So until it really gets going, I don't try and move the fire around. I'm curious to see if I can get flames out of the top of this without the blower. We'll just have to see how that works with the round wood. I'm going to fill this firebox up as much as I can, which may not mean full because I want to make sure there's room for air to flow in the top too. It may take a little bit longer to get this going today just because it rained yesterday and some of the wood is still a little bit damp even though it's had about 10 hours to dry. So it'll boil the water out once it gets going. Still a little smoky out of the top though. I'm going to give this a little bit of air. I think I'm getting close to the top here. It makes me happy. Alright, so I've been successful in getting the flames coming out of the top here with just the round wood burn, which I'm excited about. It's got a nice rocket sound to it. With a little more practice and testing, I'm going to try this to melt some aluminum. This is definitely the biggest rocket stove I've built so far. And what makes a rocket stove green is the fact that I can use found fuel that's dropped from the trees right around my backyard. You may notice that I changed into a clean shirt, which is part of the Green Shorts gear, which you can find in the merchandise store below the video. As always, our mission here at Green Shorts is to help you see green so you can be green, and save a little green by doing it yourself. Thanks so much for watching. Please like and share. Keep all the great comments coming, and we'll see you in the next video.